Well, we finally reached Article number 3 in the Constitution. It's about the judicial branch. This is podcast number 13. Oi, oi, oi! That is the traditional courtroom call that means, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, or listen up. It comes from the Old French word used to command silence and to draw everyone's attention to the court. The bailiff usually shouts it just before a judge enters the room to formally announce that the court is now in session and all arise out of respect for the judge. The kindest judge today is famous for his internet shows. His name is Judge Frank Caprio from Rhode Island. He has the courtesy to listen to people, and he shows empathy and common sense and believes in second chances. He'll also charge people with punishment and issue fines when deserved. Before his notoriety with Judge Judy, these shows give people a little insight into courtroom procedures. When I lived in Idaho City, I had to go in the courthouse several times when we lived up there for different things. And once it was to pay a ticket. And I was flabbergasted when the address took me to the local bar. This wasn't just any town that we lived in, it was an old fashioned, old country town. It used to be a gold mining town. And they still had, in good weather, they used the two flapping doors for the doorway for the bar, and and that's where it was. And the county clerk's office was in a room just a door adjoining the bar. Of course, they closed the bar down when court was in session, but the judge still used the bar for his backdrop, and he sat behind the bar. I felt like I had gone back 100 years in time. These courts that I've talked about with Frank Caprio and Idaho City courts, they're all about state courts. But the federal government has federal courts, and the Constitution talks about that in the third article. The Constitution mainly talks about the federal judge courts. State judges are elected, but federal judges are not. They are chosen by the President of the United States and appointed by the Senate if they get approval that that person will work. A federal judge takes two oaths. Originally, the oath was just short and sweet. It said, I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. That was it. Now there are two general oaths that are taken. The first one was written in the late 1800s, and the second one was written in the early 1900s. The first general oath says, I, and then they state their name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and alliance to the people. And the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservations or without any evasion, and I will and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office for which I am about to enter, so help me God. Then the second oath was added through an amendment. I, they state their name, do solemnly swear that I administer justice without respect to a person or and do equal rights for the poor and to the rich, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as judge under the Constitution and laws of the United States. So help me God. Wow. These dual oaths carry profound significance. They mean a judge must know the Constitution and uphold the Constitution. They should be with no personal opinion, only the law, and that they don't let others influence them. It's crystal clear that a judge's loyalty is to be to the Constitution. So now we have the the third section, the third article, the first section, and it talks about judges are a good behavior lifelong office as long as their health will allow. Once they're called to that office, they'll stay there until they're not able to perform their duties if they are under good behavior. This way, they don't answer to the people, and the people don't bribe them easily, like elected individuals can be bribed, and it happens. Power is in one Supreme Court and in inferior courts as the Congress may establish them for federal uses. And they have established them. We have two inferior courts at this time. One of them is called district courts. That's where you go for a trial. And this is an entry level where federal cases begin with witnesses and juries and convictions or and verdicts. Um, there are 94 district courts in the 50 states, so that's almost two district court per state. The other inferior court is called the circuit courts. That's called the Court of Appeal. These are above a district court and do not retry the cases. They just review the cases from the district court and look at their decisions and make sure the law was applied correctly. And we have 13 circuit courts in the United States. Now, so that means we have three levels of courts in the federal government. The lowest, the district, the next is the circuit, and the highest is the Supreme Court, the final authority. It has one Chief Justice and 8 associate judges. It has ultimate jurisdiction over all federal and state court cases involving federal law. State courts handle legal cases like families, contracts, criminal law, that type of thing. But federal courts handle constitutional laws being held up, federal conduct, and interstate disputes. So that's pretty much section 1. So section 2 is about the federal judicial power is over treaties. Cases affecting ambassadors and maritime or things that happen at sea. That's why we have the Marines that go out and do the investigation on the ships at sea and come back, and they hold their trials through federal means, not through the states. Another reason why that the judicial has power over is state versus state, all the interstate problems that happen, or a citizen versus claiming lands and grants in another state, or citizens of the United States with foreign countries. Congress may pick where these trials are held, and then the judges go there. Okay, that's it for section 2. It's about treaties, ambassadors, things off the land that the judicial branch is supposed to take care of, make sure justice is carried out. The third section, which is the last section in Article 3, is treason against the United States. No person can be convicted unless they have the testimony of 2 witnesses or an open confession. That's the only way they can be convicted of treason. If found guilty of treason, a federal judge can declare that they are guilty, and then their punishment is declared by Congress. So he doesn't declare their punishment Congress does. A famous case is Ethel and Julius Rosenberg in 1953. It led to Congress having them executed for giving atomic secrets to the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had gotten the uranium and had constructed an atomic bomb, but they didn't know how to detonate it to set it off. That's the secret that the Rosenbergs stole and gave to Russia. Russia used it and made atomic bombs and used them in Korea to kill over 50,000 people, and a million casualties also happened. The judge of the case was Irving Robert Kaufman, and it was hard for him. But he said, in good conscience, I have tried to find a way for mercy for you, but I would violate my sacred oath to the people of this land if I showed leniency. It is not in my hands to forgive you. Only the Lord can find mercy to do that. And they were executed. Um, that was during the Cold War that we had with Russia. There have been problems where the judicial branch have overstepped their authority. When Earl Warren, a Supreme Court judge from 1953 till 1969, made a couple of judgment calls and made laws that wasn't his place to make. He did some good, but it wasn't his place to do it according to the Constitution. His feelings were, well, there are social needs that need to be met, and the states and Congress aren't doing that, so the courts feel compelled to take action. This really would have messed with the brains of our founding fathers to have heard and seen him do this and say this. The courts feel compelled to take action because the states and Congress aren't. It wasn't his place. They are there to carry, the judicial branch is there to carry out established laws, not to establish them. The court's place is to relate to law and rights, not politics. That's Congress's right. To be a judge has to be hard. The best example of a wise judge was King Solomon in the Bible. He was king of the Israelites. He had two fighting women who had just given birth come to him and declare that a newborn infant was theirs. He wasn't sure which one was the real mother, so he held the infant up and he said, I will cut him into two pieces and then you can each have a piece. And one woman instantly said, don't kill the baby. She can have him. And the king gave that woman that pleaded for the baby's life the baby. She was willing to give him up to save his life. A real mother would do that. Therefore, King Solomon was known for his wisdom. Good judges need a strong moral compass and to help them with conflicts to be resolved. Another story about judgment is told by William Shakespeare in his play Merchants of Venice. There are four characters at play: Sherlock, the rich Jew who lends money to make interest off of it, and he hates Antonio. Bassanio, a lovesick groom who needs to borrow money. Antonio is Bassanio's friend who is older and has ships, but all his money is tied up in these ships at the moment. Then there's Portia, is the bride who loves Bassanio and later saves everybody. Shylock, the rich Jew, gives money to Antonio using a promise note that if the money is not paid back in full by the date mentioned, that Shylock may have a pound of his flesh. The day the money is due, the ships with cargo are still at sea, and Shylock has Antonio put in jail and eagerly awaits his trial. Bassanio gets the money and tries to pay it to Sherlock to save his friend, But Shylock says he doesn't want the money anymore. It's a day late. And what he wants is revenge on Antonio for spitting on him. They go to court. Bastinio is beside himself with grief. He feels it's his fault that his friend is going to probably die because of this. Portia, the bride, dresses like a man and appears in court to defend Antonio. It looks like Shylock is legally correct and will get his choice as to where he can have this pound of flesh. He chooses Antonio's heart. At the dramatic moment when Shylock holds his knife, Portia finds a flaw in the legal contract. She said, "He may take Antonio's heart, but nowhere does it say that he can have even one drop of Antonio's blood. If he does shed even a drop of this good Christian's blood, he will have all his money and property seized and be deported." Thus Portia saved Antonio and got away with tricking her new husband because he had no idea it was her. It's a great comedy, but it shows that even though laws need to be in place and upheld, there are sometimes a creative way to show mercy is also important. Judicial branch helps protect us. It keeps peace in the land. A judge has to read a lot and has to have access to written cases that have taken place so that he can see how and why other judges made rulings. They carry a heavy burden of knowing others' lives can be changed for the better or the worse by their decisions. Having the judicial branch in the Constitution was inspired. It provides a check and balances needed to keep the president in line and Congress under control. Be grateful for these men in black robes that carry wooden hammers and are watching out for your rights as a citizen in this great country. May God be with you till we meet again.